just before you are in listen-only mode, please go ahead and type in any questions. I'm doing something a little different today, and I've split my screen, so hopefully I got my questions on my question panel on the right screen, and maybe I'll be a little better about noticing when you guys ask me a question. Welcome to spring, at least for yesterday and today. Hopefully it continues on. I don't know about the rest of you, but I have finally got the feeling back in my hands from getting them pried off my steering wheel for driving back and forth to work this winter. And I'm glad that all of you were safe, and we are going to be seeing some good weather here shortly, although we don't have any more excuses for working at home. I also wanted to thank you about being patient with me during our heavy busy season, year-end, and W-2s and 1099s. Those are done, yay, and hopefully everyone has everything filed, including electronic W-2s by this point. And I also wanted to take a moment today to welcome Suzanne Watson to our team. She has joined ConnerAsh a few weeks ago and is currently in training with me. She's on mute today, so she's not going to be able to say hello, but I welcome you to call in and talk to her anytime. We've been trying to do the little Vulcan mind meld, and it's just, you know, as you know, it takes a long time to get 27 years of knowledge into someone's head, but she's doing wonderfully, and I'm sure she will do a great job helping you as I do. So let's get started, and we're going to talk about a topic today that a lot of us think about, but, you know, we don't use very often. We know that they're on the screen, at least the recurring entries we know are on the screen, but then we have the standard journal entries that for some of us kind of seemed like it disappeared when we went to the version 4. They didn't. They're just entered a different way. So the perplexing thing is, what is the difference between recurring journal entries and standard? They're somewhat the same, but somewhat different. What a recurring journal entry is an entry that we will do monthly, weekly, once a quarter, annually. But it's going to retain both our general ledger journal account numbers and the dollar amounts. So this is basically a template that you're setting up that you're going to be running however often you need to run. So where do we go? We go to General Ledger Main, and we set up our template in recurring journal entry. Now, I like to set up a particular code for my recurring journals. Now, you can use GJ, JE, AR, AP, PR, whatever you want to use, but I use RJ for mine. Then you give it a reference number. So maybe I want to do a monthly depreciation entry. So I give it a reference code, and you'll notice here too, there is no magnifying glass. So that's user-defined. That's what I tell the system I want my reference code to be. And also we come down here to statement cycle. So statement cycle, once again, no magnifying glass. I define that. We're going to do an M for monthly. Now, I'm going to tell you, all of our brains think a little differently. So, we had a client one time that M just wasn't cutting it for them. So I said, well, do you run these on the 15th of the month? Yes. So we put a 15 in there. So make it whatever makes sense to you, okay? So you don't have to follow what I do. Make it so it's good for you. Now with a depreciation, I want that to run all year. So I'm going to set it up to start January 1st, but I want it to automatically stop on December 31st. Because next year my entries are going to be slightly different once it's recalculated. Now I'm going to put in a journal comment. This is a comment that is going to occur on the ledger. So this is the journal comment that is going to go with this entry. Okay? And we're going to go to lines. Now in my lines tab, I'm going to define the GL account numbers I want this to post to. Now you also notice that I did not put in all the digits. If my trailing section is zeros, I do not have to put those digits in. I do not have to put the dashes in. And I also want to point something else out. Most of you probably already know this, but we have two grids on our screen. This is our primary grid. This is our secondary grid. If there's information in the secondary grid that I want in my primary grid, I just have to drag it up there, and I only have to drag it up one time. It'll stay there permanently for me. I personally like my description up with my account number, because if I accidentally key in the wrong account number, I want to know. And I read left to right, not top to bottom. So that's why I keep my description up in the primary grid. I'm going to put in the dollar amount, and I can change this comment if I want to change this comment on this particular line. So I'm going to put in my others. Okay, and oops. Helps if it balanced. How did I know it didn't balance? Because I have a net balance right there. Okay, so now my debits equal my credits, and I'm going to go ahead and click Accept. This does not post that entry. I just set up the template. Okay, so if I wanted to print out a listing of what entries that I have set up, because maybe I'm new or I need to change some entries or whatever, I need to know what's out there, I can click on this listing button. And what this is going to do is it's going to show me a listing of any entries that I have already predefined out here. Okay? So that's how I get a listing of my existing entries. Now it's the time of the month that I want to use these entries, so what do? I'm going to go into Recurring Journal. In here, I give it a posting date. Now, keep in mind, my test data, you're going to notice sometimes it's going to say 2010, but we're going to go ahead and post in 2014 because we're going to say that I'm one of those people that, ooh, did not close my year. Shame on me. But we're going to go ahead and let it post for this month. And if I hit print, it'll ask me what source journal, cycle code, or reference numbers. So I don't have to do them all if I don't want to. If I just want to do my monthly ones or the ones with the cycle code of M, I can go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit Proceed. And it now gives me a listing of anything that has cycle code event. Now, I did have one that was deleted out here, and you see this because in my setup options, I had told the system that I wanted to track deleted journal entries. So at this point, since I am paperless, that's why this came up. If I wanted to print it, I can click the print button, or I can exit out, and I'm going to go ahead and say, yes, I want to update my recurring journal. So once again, recurring journals, same GL account numbers, same dollar amount. Can I go back in the next month and edit that dollar amount? Of course I can. But that's what it's used for, something that's going to happen, and it normally will keep the same dollar amount every month. Okay? Now, let's talk about standard journal entries. You notice we don't have an option out here that says standard because they're in here, general journal entry. We've all noticed these buttons out here, but we don't quite know how they work. Okay, so let's set up a standard journal because it is very different from our version 3X and below to once we went to version 4. So I'm going to set up a payroll journal. Now, when I initially set it up, I'm actually going to make the journal entry, but I'm going to save it because I want to use it in the future. Maybe I use Paychex or ADP or a third-party payroll system, and I'm not doing the payroll within Sage itself, so I have to do this journal entry either once a week, bi-weekly, or however often my payroll is. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to give myself a new entry number, and I'm going to tell it I want this to, post on 2/28/14. Tell telling me it's in a future period, because remember my general ledger is has not been closed for 2010. I'm not going to do a reversing because this is my payroll entry. And I'm just going to call this biweekly payroll. Okay? I'm going to go to my Lines tab, and I'm going to put in the account numbers that I would, and dollar amounts for this particular entry. So I want you guys to bear with me while I put these in here. And I can change the descriptions on each line if I chose to do so. And don't worry, I didn't do a giant journal entry here, just a few lines. But what this entry will do for me versus the recurring is this will keep the GL account numbers, but it'll zero out the dollar amounts. So every time I go to use this, I will just have the GL account numbers. Okay, so I've made my entry here. I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone. I'm going to make my entry, but I'm going to save this entry at the same time. And once again, I probably would normally put my description up there also. Okay. Oops, sorry about that. So debits equal credits. Now, I want to save standard. This is how I create this as a standard entry. I'm going to save standard. And I'm going to give it a journal, standard journal name. So I'm going to call this, maybe MPR. Okay? And this is going to be my payroll journal. And I do want to save my comments with it. You don't have to, but I want to. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Accept. Now, at this point, I can accept it, print it, post it. Boom, I got my entry ready for next month, okay, or next payroll. So I'm going to go ahead and print this out, and I'm going to post it. So once again, I killed two birds with one stone. I entered my entry, and I saved it. Could I have, there it is right there, that first one I was playing with, and it deleted, but here's my entry. Could I have entered this entry with $0? Absolutely. Most definitely, I could have. Okay? It's 2 weeks later, and now I want to use that standard journal entry. So I'm going to go into General Journal Entry. You put in your journal code, and you have to give it an entry number. That's the trick. Because I'm going to go back a second. Notice that my Copy From button is grayed out. I have to give it a journal entry number. Now I can click Copy From. So I'm going to click Copy From, and I'm going to use Standard. But while I'm on the screen, I want to point something else out. I can copy from Journal History. If I have a journal entry that I did 6 months ago, and I want to do that one again, I can click on Journal History, and I can find that entry number, and I can pull it in and copy that one in. Or I can do an allocation. Majority of us do not do allocation entries, so I'm going to kind of stay away from that one. But I'm going to tell it I want to copy from a standard journal, so I'm going to hit OK here. If I had multiples, it would list them all out. So here's that one we just made a few minutes ago. It has my comment. Go to my lines. Voila. Here's my entry. Here's my accounts. $0. So then I just key, saving the keystrokes. So that's how you do standard journal entries in the 4.x system. It seemed like it went away, but it really didn't go away. It's been there the whole time. We just didn't necessarily know how to use them or if it was there. Okay, I have a question that says, would we be able to add a line to a standard journal entry, say if we had a unique payroll charge? Yes, absolutely. So, here's a good example. Here we are. I've just brought this up, okay, and maybe I need to add, let's add some driver payroll. Maybe I need to add this line. So I can add it on the fly, Maybe it's just for this payroll. So I've pulled my standard journal entry in. It's just for this payroll. So, you know, in this case, I can add that line and then put the amount to it. Maybe this line needs to be added for the future. If it does, you click on Save Standard, and it resaves it with that the additional GL codes that you put in there. So yes, you can use it on the fly, or you can save it so it pulls it in for future use. Or even you may need to remove an account. I mean, maybe we don't use this, you know, healthcare or whatever anymore, and we need to pull that out. Or here's a good one, our favorite, right? Garnishments. We have, you know, a GL account for our garnishments that we need to pull off because maybe we've set our garnishments up per employee and that employee is no longer with our company. So we want to get that out of our journal entry. You take it out, you know, you remove the line, and then you resave it. Okay? Cool, neat, was always there, kind of hidden, a little scary when you first try to use it because it's like, how do you make these? And then you figure it out. Okay, so that is our lesson on recurring and standard. Now, for your special treat for today, we're going to talk about something that's been in the software, and it's a printing feature that you may or may not know about. So let's, for instance, let's go to our aged invoice report. Now, I'm using the standard report. I have not modified this report in any way. But, you know, sometimes I have this one salesman or my boss always wants me to print this report for these two specific customers. Now, these customers are not in the range because I want to print it for this customer and this customer, but I got this guy in between. I don't want to see this guy. He doesn't want to see this guy, and he keeps yelling at me because, you know, quit giving me this report with you know, this company in here. I don't want it. I just want it for the few that I'm asking you for. So what do? Well, my favorite thing in this system that a lot of us aren't used to using, and a lot of us use it a lot, is our question mark. So, you know, always try the question mark and see what you can do or see what's out there. There's a lot of things here. And oh my gosh, look at this one. Enter multiple values using separators. So there's a little help lesson on here. What you can do is I can enter the customer numbers that I want. No dashes, no spaces. Let me get my caps lock on. I'm using a comma. Okay, so those are the two customers that my boss wants to see. I'm going to hit preview. And voila, look at that. I can do this with customers, vendors, inventory, GL accounts. Play with it. Have fun with it. Okay? For instance, in inventory, under reports, stock status report, maybe I have a couple items that I want to always print. Now, I created a special report for it, but I actually have 3 items here. Maybe I always want to print the stock status for these 3 items. These are the items I cannot run out of. So rather than going to my stock status and printing the first one, then going back in, printing the second one, and then going back in, printing the third one, I'm going to do my values here with separators, hit my preview, and voila, here's my 3 items on one report. I don't have to work with 3 reports. Now, some of you said, hey, now wait a minute. How? Okay, I'm going to bump back to accounts receivable real quick, and we're going to save a report, because some of us have never done this before. All your reports come with standard. Keep this in mind. This is very important. Any changes that you make on this screen when this says standard are not permanent changes. For instance, if I always wanted to run this sorted by salesperson, and maybe I want to include paid invoices, the next time I come in here, it's going to be back to the normal defaults. So if I do want to create a report that I don't want to be clicking all the time, I have to give it a different report setting. So we're going to come down to where we were before. We're going to put these two customers back in, because I want to save this. So because I like to save myself keystrokes and time, I don't like to have to key all the stuff in all the time. So I'm going to click my down arrow, and I'm going to choose Save As. And we're going to call this Special Customers. I don't want this to be my default, though, because I'm only going to run this when the boss yells and says, hey, I want that. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. So now I have a report setting out here. If I go out and I come back in, here's my standard. Click my magnifying glass. There's my report setting. Once again, do this for the GL account numbers you always have to print. Do it for the, the vendors, or, especially those item numbers, that there's special things that you want to look at. Create your own report settings. And keep that in mind for your forms also. Those of us that are, especially with checks, don't ever use the standard form for checks, because you always have to click whether it's, check stub, check. You don't want to have to do that. You want to save yourself some time. Let the computer and the software work for you instead of you working for the software. So that's my fun fact for the day. I also want you to keep in mind that I am constantly looking for new ideas to show you. So if you have anything that you would like to see, I'd be more than happy to show it to you. I will also tell you that at this point in time, the 2014 version was released last week. Quite honestly, we have a lot of people who are just now installing the 2013 version, which had a few good enhancements in it. It's a very stable version, the 2013. And as we know, usually with a new version, I like to wait usually 60 to 90 days to install it in our production environments. So keep that in mind, that it is out there. If you're not on the 2013 yet, you may want to consider taking advantage of some of the new features that are in there. Or if you have some ideas of future Tech Tuesdays that we'd like to do, we are going to be back to be doing them every other Tuesday, so you can look forward to that. And I enjoy seeing all of you join us during the sessions, and be more than happy to take any questions afterwards. So the rest of you, all of you, enjoy your day. It's sunny. If you can, get outside today, because I understand it's supposed to rain tomorrow. And once again, happy spring. Thank you for coming, and that is all I have for today. Thank you very much, and have a great day. Bye now.